Today we're going to do a commander guide on Faramir, who is a pretty strong commander, but not a top tier commander in my estimation. So stick around in this video for everything you need to know to get the most punch possible out of your Faramir. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today we're breaking down Faramir, who was the second commander that I unlocked on this account. In fact, I think if you play dwarves, do you get him guaranteed? Because I think you might actually just get him guaranteed as your second commander on your account. Now, because he was the second commander I got, I leveled him up a lot, giving him a lot of talent points to apply, and we're going to talk about why that got to be really problematic. But first, I want to point out that the trait on Faramir is balanced. He gets some might, he gets some focus, he gets some speed, he gets some extra skill points. You unlock this when you hit level 20. Now, I'm going to continue through this guide, and by the way, if you want to navigate to any portion of the video, there are timestamps. Consider joining my Discord, discord.gg/Chisgule. Subscribe if you haven't already, and you're getting value from this video. And if the public service announcement's out of the way, let's get to the thing that you really care about, the talents. Chisgule, what talents do I pick? We're going to break this down based on Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 talents, okay? And by that, I mean, when your loyalty level 0 through 2, all you have access to is this first ring. And this is really tragic and problematic because, unfortunately, Faramir is a freaking tipper, man. Tippers are the worst. You don't need tippers. You really don't. What do I mean by that? He reduces the amount of time it takes to do tips. And this is problematic because all I want is combat effectiveness. I get that maybe some people playing super casually, okay, somehow need to get tips done faster. But if you really want a tip done faster, gosh bless, you know how you do that? Let me show you how you do that. You go to your fellowship, you go to your fellowship store, and you buy the item right over here for tavern tip speed. You queue up to do a tavern tip, and then you use one of these, and it instantly completes. That's how you do your tips faster. I'll buy one right now, okay? That's how you get a tip done quickly. And I'm telling you, I spend a lot of gems getting extra tips, and I still don't ever feel like I wish I could do them faster. So with that out of the way, I hope you're on board for the fact that tippers, every time you see one in their talent points, you should be concerned, because wouldn't you rather have a commander that had more combat options? And for me, as I was progressing with this commander, I reached a point where I had to put points into tipping instead of things that actually gave me combat effectiveness. This was hugely problematic for my second strongest commander to be a tipper, because I needed to push my loyalty level higher to get more combat effectiveness. Now, okay, now that I've talked about why I don't like this bottom one over here, which improves your tip time, okay? I also, to get a little bit of extra juice out of him, put extra experience gain from battling. So every point I could, I put him over there. And then also you get extra experience from tips. I mean, even if you power level this commander by getting extra tip experience, like, it's just not amazing. But let's talk about his combat skills, because they're decent, okay? The first one makes it so that on round 2, against one enemy target, you're going to deal extra damage. And all units gain initiative for the next round. I think that means they just attack first. I like abilities that front load a lot of damage, and when you take this all the way up to 15, you actually get a might boost to 15, which is pretty decent. In addition, these side skills are pretty okay too. Rush makes it so that in round 1, against one on target, you're going to do 240% physical damage. You know, look, I like things that do a lot of damage up front. That's pretty solid. Yeah, there are other commanders that have abilities that do more damage in later turns, but a lot of damage up front is pretty good, because for the rest of the fight, they have less stuff. Also, in fights that you take out the first target and there's a second thing that you fight behind it, you will get to use those abilities again. So things that you get to use on turn 1 and 2 are really good. And here's another round 2 ability. Flanking does 480% physical damage, prioritizing ranged units. I love this. Actually, everything going on over here in his tree is really solid. Like, you should be pretty happy to put your points over there. I had to force my way to loyalty level 3 really quickly so that I could unlock this next row and stop using these stinking tipping talents on my second strongest commander. And, you know, look, this was a $3 account. I didn't have a lot of options. This is what I had, okay? So what do you get at loyalty level 3? Guide is really good. It makes it so that all of your allied units are doing a physical damage boost of plus 45%. Now, if you had units in your army that are not doing physical damage, this does no benefit. So I don't know what those units would be, but you wouldn't want to include them. And it's for the first 2 rounds of the fight. So you get a lot of punch up front. And when you max level this, you can't get stunned. Now, I would find that I would sometimes get stunned, and getting stunned sucks. You don't do your damage. So yes, for these first 2 turns, while your damage is boosted, you have stun immunity, which is nice, because if they could stun you in those turns, it would completely negate this ability. So getting this to 15 seems really important. And after that, you can see I really pushed on Armed Escort. It makes it so that against one enemy target, I deal 100% physical damage, and I recover hit points, modified by my focus stat. Now, this gets kind of weird, because this commander, you want might to do damage, but also focus stat is increasing this healing effect. So this effect can actually go higher than it is for me. I have this at 5 out of 7. And unfortunately, this ability, Foresight, I don't like. It makes it so that if you're fighting something that has an avoidance effect, you can ignore that avoidance effect, potentially. So for the first 4 rounds, all the units in your army, I guess it's all allied units, I guess this includes Faramir, all allied units have a 20% chance, well, I guess at the level I have it, a 10% chance, to ignore an avoidance effect. So let me just show you. An avoidance effect, as an example, would be like what you see on this unit as I go to all the wrong places. This unit right over here, these Sentinels, they have a 100% chance to avoid the first 1 attack. Well, geez. You know who does a lot of round 1 attacks? Freaking Faramir. So it seems pretty bad if they just avoid the attack. Like, you're super countered in that instance. So, yes, being able to avoid avoidance effects, this is like really meta, is really good if you're up against an enemy that has them, and that does nothing when you fight anyone who doesn't. So keep that in mind, that based on who you're fighting, you may want to tap this in, or if you have lots of points, you may tap it in. But you can see that I am opting for talent points to go places that give me value all the time, regardless of who my opponent is, okay? Now, at the top end of things, if I made it to Loyalty 5, which I haven't yet, you get a stacking defense boost. Now, this is interesting. Every round you get stronger defensively. I like that a lot. It points to getting value from fights that run longer rather than fights that end quickly. But every round you get some extra defense. I don't feel like this is absolutely critical. I honestly don't. You get an extra focus boost once you get to the max amount, which honestly, like, nothing about this felt mandatory to me. I get that it could be very, very strong and I'm undervaluing it, but offhand, it just doesn't seem like a must-get talent. And here's where you end up in the must-get talent territory. Nobility gives your men a damage boost, 3% per point. Well, geez. This is really good. Boosting your damage by 3% per point is above average. So, yes, if you're going with an all-men army, I think that this is a really great thing to go and get. So if you are starting with, like, Gondor or Rohan, and you get Faramir to level 5 for his loyalty, then I think that's really premium to go and get. I really feel like every time you see that, it's like, oh, that's what this commander's designed to do, right? He's a man specialist for whatever it's worth. And up top, you've got Gallant, which increases your might and speed by a percentage. Now, I don't have this unlocked, so I can't tell you if this is basing or boosting your might and speed based off of his base stats, or if it includes his equipment. I suspect it includes his equipment. If somebody could let me know down below in the comments, that would be really important. But I felt like because I have him low loyalty level, and I'm not getting him to a high loyalty level anytime soon, and because I don't have good equipment, because I'm on a nearly free-to-play, a $3 spend account, Gallant wouldn't do all that much for me anyway. So even if I had loyalty 5, because I'm not using men units, because I don't think I have the equipment or loyalty level on this commander to really benefit a ton by a % boost to might and speed, like, honestly, loyalty 5 felt like something I didn't even need, which is weird. So I think Faramir is a strong commander, but he's not Gangbuster, and he has limited options, right? Like, unless you're doing men, and unless you care about tipping, he's really only got 2 branches that are really worth investing in. And one of these is even kind of questionable. It's got sometimes utility and sometimes nothing. So I think he's just okay in the grand scheme of things. And if we talk about the equipment you would put on him in order to get the most value possible, I feel like I would go with equipment as I've done here. And I didn't have a lot of options, but I want to avoid taking damage in the first couple rounds. Why did I want to do that? The reason I want to avoid taking damage is because in the first 2 rounds, I do 45% extra damage from the talents that I've chosen. Well, gosh, if I'm taking damage in those rounds, I have less units, and less units means less damage. So I wanted to create a world in which, if possible, I could get lucky and avoid taking damage and then hit even harder with that loyalty level 3 talent giving me 45% extra damage. That's what I went with. I would otherwise stack might and speed. I guess focus a little bit for that 1 healing ability and reducing the damage you take overall. Like, you could do that, but I didn't feel like that was the play here. And again, I had very limited options. So I've even got Ent's speed boost, and I'm not using Ent's because, like, oh, I have an accessory. I'm going to give it to him. He gets focus and speed, right? Like, I've got what I've got here, and I imagine most players in Season 1 are in that exact same situation. Now, if you wanted to improve his loyalty, this is where things get really, really problematic. You're using the superior horse armor, and I've got a Hergon guide coming up, and I'll make a guide for all the commanders in this game, okay? But let me just tell you up front that these other commanders, I think, are much more worthy of using your big ticket items that boost loyalty. And without getting too in-depth in that, I ultimately did use my items on him instead of these other commanders because I started with him and because he was really high level and because it didn't feel like I was going to be able to power level another commander in time for him to be really relevant in this season of the game. So I went and I boosted his loyalty because I felt like I wanted to get to loyalty 3 as fast as I could. Without making other major sacrifices. And so I feel like it was reasonable. But again, between the choice of getting more loyalty or even unlocking, this is really criminal that I haven't even unlocked AON, and I'll talk about that in another video. Between the option of putting my loyalty items into Hergon, like, I think those two are better options. So bad news for Faramir. He's a freaking tipper. And because his loyalty item is useful for other commanders that I think are potentially better, depending on what you're doing, he's a fine generalist. If you get him to loyalty 5, he'll be good with men. But otherwise, I just think he's okay, right? Better commanders exist, and you should stick with those. And if you want to see what those commanders are, as I cover them in future videos, consider subscribing. If you found this helpful, throw a like on here. It supports the channel. It's 100% free to you to do. I appreciate it very much. And if you want to see the last guide that I did here on Dwalin, I think he's a really phenomenal generalist. And if you want to compare that, okay, to looking at the talents that we had on Faramir, I think that'd be a cool idea. Cards up in the top if you want to check out that video. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies. Leave a comment. What do you think of Faramir?